Hey there, folks. So, this is a video that I've debated about for maybe few weeks, maybe a month at the most, because but like a few weeks ago, I took like a little bit of a hiatus on YouTube, or like a 2-week hiatus, which is more than usual. But it was during that time I got signed up for Paramount Plus, a streaming service, and that was like. I was like, oh, I should do a video on this. Like, I debated about it, and I was like, oh, and then now I'm just like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it. Hey, that rhymed. But, so, one thing that I should probably get out of the way is a number of people think that this is actually a new service, but it's actually been around for a few years. It was called CBS All Access, which, and then they recently changed the name to Paramount Plus, probably because that's what everyone else is doing, like Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, whatever. But it's there's a couple of things reasons I signed up for it. Was one, there's going to be a live action Halo series coming out next year in 2022, so that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be an original series exclusive to the service, so that's something I'm really looking forward to. But the main reason I signed up for it was the amount of Nickelodeon shows that were on there, because I had always heard about it. Like, people were always saying oh, there's like a handful of them on there and stuff, and then when they recently changed the name to Paramount Plus, they added a bunch more, and then they added a lot more, which I'll talk about those more in a second. But there's also because it has there's you can go through it a couple of different ways. Like, there's sections like Nickelodeon, MTV, CBS, what was the other one? Comedy Central, and I think there's 2 other ones. I think Bet is one, and I forget what the other one is. But so it's it has obviously, well, let me get these out of the way. Is there's news and sports and stuff, which I personally don't care about, but if that's your thing, that they're on there. So getting back to the Nickelodeon, because that was like I said, the main reason I signed up for it. And there's other things too, which I'll talk about after the Nickelodeon. But for the Nickelodeon, one show, because I'm gonna go through the decades, it's the past 30 years, basically. So, but so Nickelodeon started in the 80s. I was born in 87. One show that I think came out in 85 was You Can't Do That on Television, which it ran into the early 90s with reruns and stuff. So I remember that. It's probably the earliest Nickelodeon show I remember, or one of the earliest. But that's on there. I just wanted to throw that out of the way, since that's not from the past 30 years, because it came out in the 80s. But yeah, that's on there. As for the other shows, I'm not going to go oh, these ones from this decade, these ones from that decade. I'm just going to go through the whole list of them, because so there's shows that came out in the 90s that ran into the 2000s, shows that came out in 2000s ran into the 2010s, because as I mentioned in my Nickelodeon video that I did back in January, I think, was it? Or maybe it was March. Well, the Nickelodeon video I did earlier this year, I talked about how I watched the network all these years, these past 30 years. There's still shows on there that I enjoyed, even into my teenage years and 20s and stuff. But anyway, the shows on there, Nickelodeon, include Rugrats, Doug, Salute Your Shorts, Keenan and Kel, Drake and Josh, Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, Victorious, hold on, I'm drawing a blank here. Ren and Stimpy, I don't think I said that yet. Rocko's Modern Life, Hey Arnold, Avatar: The Last Airbender, which came out in 2005. Many people of all ages consider it to be the greatest Nicktoon ever made. It's an action cartoon series, if you're unfamiliar with it. And then there was Legend of Korra, that's on there, which was kind of a spin-off series, that's on there. What else? Real Monsters, As Told by Ginger, Invader Zim, which is such a great show. I've been rewatching that quite a bit, even though I have it on DVD. But My Life as a Teenage Robot, a series that came out I think over the summer of 2003. Nicktoons. That's a very underrated show. I've been rewatching that. That's a great show. Very underrated, like I said, in my opinion. What else is there? Hold on, I'm drawing a blank here. I should have wrote it down. Angry Beavers. I said Legends of the Hidden Temple. Oh, Nick Arcade, that's on there. That was a big one for me. That was ooh, because that's my favorite game show of all time. else is there? There's more I can think of in a minute. There are some that are, missing, which I'm sure I'll probably remember more in a minute. But there are some shows that are missing. Kablam, that's another one that's on there. That was a big one for me. But some of the ones that are missing include Adventures of Pete and Pete, Caitlin's Way, which came out in 2000, like a teen drama series. It was okay, in my opinion. Wasn't great, good, not great. Amanda's Show and All That. Those are two more I just remember that are on there. Other shows that aren't on there, like I said, Adventures of Pete and Pete, Figure It Out. I said Caitlin's Way. A few others, but I can't think of it at the moment. And then, like, other shows that, like, are Hey Dude, Guts, iCarly, and, what was the other one? Big Time Rush. Not really my cup of tea. Not saying they're bad or anything, but I just was never really a huge fan of those shows. But those are on there. Those were, like, 90s and 2000 shows, or, like, late 2000 shows. And then there's, for the kiddies, there's quite a few Nick Jr. shows on there. There's Little Bear, Allegra's Window. God, I haven't seen that show in forever. I actually rewatched a couple episodes, probably because I was like 7 or 8 years old when the last time I saw that show. But personally, it's not as good as I remembered. That was that show with that little like the character. It was like characters like puppets and stuff, like puppet people, if you will. Like the girl named Allegra, I think she was like in preschool or something, or daycare or something. But Gullah Gullah Island. I said Little Bear, Blue's Clues, of course, Bob the Builder, Paw Patrol, Dora the Explorer, Go Diego Go, the one with the monster truck. I forget. I don't know what the name of it is, but I've seen it around and stuff because of I have nephews and stuff. But I've seen that on that's on there. Like I said, I forget the name of it. Max and Ruby, and again, some of the shows that are missing on there are like Franklin and what was the other one I was just thinking of? Eureka's Castle, and unfortunately those aren't on there. But, other shows that aren't Nickelodeon related, like I Love Lucy is on there. Unfortunately, they don't have all the episodes. Like there's some of the classics are missing, like The Diet and The Ballet, which were some of my favorites. Not really sure why they're not on there, but Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, that's another Nickelodeon show that's on there. That one always slips my mind for some reason because that was a great show. Fairly Odd Parents and Spongebob, obviously. Danny Phantom, that's another good one. Cat Dog, more shows keep coming back to me like, oh yeah, that one's on there. Are You Afraid of the Dark is on there, and Double Dare. The originals as well as the reboots, like the Double Dare reboot, it was good, but it just didn't have that same fire as the original. Like if you want to give it a shot, go ahead, or you can just watch the original. Like both are good in my opinion. Obviously, I think the original is better, but the new one, it's okay. Are You Afraid of the Dark, where they did that little like mini series. Like actually, there was two of them. There was one in October of 2019, and they did another one this previous February, and they were okay, like they were good, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the original Are You Afraid of the Dark, at least in my opinion. But some other shows that are on there that, like I said, aren't Nickelodeon related are Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, the 3 Sonic shows from the 90s, Sonic the Hedgehog, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic Underground. Danger Mouse, which never really watched it, but I think Heathcliff is on there. Because a number of these, like, you can find in the Nickelodeon section for one reason or another. Like, it's like, I don't remember the Mario or Sonic shows being on Nickelodeon, but whatever. Inspector Gadget is on there. Because that show, I do remember, even though it came out, like, in the 80s, I don't know if that was originally on Nickelodeon or not, but that was on, that is on, it was on Nickelodeon in the 90s. All Grown Up, which was like a spin-off of Nickelodeon where they were like in their preteen years. So it was like 10 years after the original series, basically. Some of the shows like are missing episodes. Like Salute Your Shorts, unfortunately, because that was a great show. It still holds up pretty well, I think. And unfortunately, like, that's missing like more than half the episodes, which I guess it has something to do with like copyright issues and stuff. And like some other shows that are missing episodes, like is Kenan and Kel. There's a couple of episodes missing. Like the pilot episode is missing, which is unfortunate because that's a great episode. It's the one where they're trying to buy a car, and that one, maybe it's copyright issues, maybe it's something else, which I kind of have a theory about. See, there's this in that episode, the character Chris, owner of Rigby's, Keenan's boss. There's a couple of scenes where he gets like upset and he starts like twitching. So it's like maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe they didn't put that episode on there because they thought it would offend certain people or something, like maybe people with Tourette's, because people with Tourette's tend to twitch, and it's like, I have Tourette's, I twitch, and I think that scene is hilarious. Well, those scenes, I should say, because it happens a few times throughout the episode. Like, it never bothered me, it didn't offend me, I thought it was funny. It's a hilarious episode. But again, that's just a theory. I don't know if that's why that episode isn't on there or not. But I think it has a lot to do with like copyright issues and stuff. And then there's also like some original programming. Oh, other shows on there that aren't Nickelodeon related are Daria, Beavis and Butthead, Aeon Flux, which was like an anime show from the early '90s. I think it was like one of the first anime shows that I watched as a kid. I remember my brother and I used to watch it all the time. Celebrity Deathmatch, but unfortunately, it's not like the classic episodes. Like, I remember when that came out, like in the late '90s, ran to like the early 2000s, and then I think it was like around the late 2000s or like early 2010s, they did like a continuation or like a something. It just wasn't the same. It didn't have, I don't know, it just wasn't as good in my opinion. Unfortunately, those are the episodes that are on there. It's not like the classic ones from like the late 90s and early 2000s. Maybe they'll add those over time, I hope, because personally I think those ones were way better. As for movies, they have like all the Mission Impossible movies, which really not my cup of tea, but they're on there. All the Indiana Jones movies are on there. What else was there? I haven't really watched a lot of the movies. I've been binge watching the Nickelodeon, but what the heck was it? What the hell is that movie called? Tommy Boy is on there, which is such a classic Chris Farley movie. I should have probably wrote a list or something, but one movie that I watched on there that was actually kind of interesting. It was actually based off a book or a novel that I own. Is Console Wars, which was basically about. It was basically like it's a story about like Sega versus Nintendo back in like the 90s. You remember like the Bit Wars, Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. Like Genesis does what Nintendo don't, and blast processing and all that. Yeah, it was pretty interesting, really. It was like a documentary type of thing. Other shows on there are like all the CSI shows and NCIS, which I would watch those here and there, like back when they were on TV and stuff. Technically they still are, but who watches TV nowadays? Well, there's still a few things like weekly episodic shows I watch on TV, but not as much. Like I don't watch TV as much as I used to because it's, it's just, yeah. I don't think I need to go into details on that. Oh yeah, I would talk like before I forget again, Comedy Central, because the shows from that. One is Crank Yankers. Like there's a lot of things like Reno 9/11, things like that. Well, there's a lot of shows from like Comedy Central, but the two that stood out to me were Crank Yankers, which I forget when that came out, but that was like a show about like puppets that do like prank phone calls and stuff. You went to watch it, not as funny as I remember. But another show that came from Comedy Central that I remember watching, like it came out when I was in high school in like the early 2000s. Is Drawn Together, and I actually bought the uncensored version on DVD not too long ago, and I still think it's hilarious. Back then I thought it was hilarious, and even now I think it's hilarious. It's a very funny show. If you like things like Beavis and Butthead and stuff, then you'd probably like Drawn Together. It's Beavis and Butthead and South Park. If you like that kind of stuff, you'd probably love Drawn Together. It's an absolutely hilarious show. And it's a brilliant idea too, which I'm not going to go into detail on it, but if you're unfamiliar. But now let me get into original programming. Well, some of the original programming. There's one that I've been meaning to check out is, and I think this was on like CBS before this. Actually, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it's like a Twilight Zone reboot remake series because I love the original series, and this is one I've been meaning to check out the new one on here, but I keep forgetting, or I just haven't gotten around to it because I'm like so binge watching the Nickelodeon stuff. But yeah, it has like mixed opinions. Some people like it, some people hate it. You know, I think it's because a lot of times people try and like always gotta compare it to the original, which I understand. I do it too sometimes, but yeah, like I need to check that out. And other shows, there's a SpongeBob spin-off called Camp Coral, which, you know, it's, well, for one thing, it's CGI or CG, whatever. Gave it a shot. Not really a fan. And one of the things, the reasons people were upset about this was because Steven Hillenburg, who passed away a few years ago, he never wanted there to be a SpongeBob series. Like, I mean, SpongeBob has basically, like, dominated Nickelodeon for the past number of years. Like, that's the main problem with the network, like, which me and other people have talked about. That's, like, literally what most of the Nickelodeon network is. It's, like, back-to-back episodes of SpongeBob. And I always remember the YouTube video from Saberspark. I think he said it best, that it's like, you know, like when Rugrats was the king of Nickelodeon, at least it had competition, and he's not wrong. But what was I gonna say? So
You're going shopping.
And then what was I gonna say? So, but yeah, he was like always against. Like, I think the series ran longer than he wanted to, and he was always opposed to spin-offs, and people, it's like, people say that it's like, oh, he's rolling in his grave, like, he never wanted a spin-off series, he didn't know about this, like, they're going against his wills and stuff like that, but it's like, cartoons take, like, quite a few years to make, so it's like, I don't know, I feel like maybe he did know about it, but maybe he didn't, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really a fan anyway, but, you know, I feel like a lot of people aren't really either, but whatever. There's also a Rugrats reboot, which again is CGI, and it's done by like the original team. Basically, you know, Arlene Klasky, can I remember his name? Gabor Kasupo. His first name is hard to pronounce, and Paul Germain. You know, long story short, there was a lot of tension between them back in the '90s. That's a whole other story. You know, you can watch. You can read, like, stuff about it, or you can watch Saberspark's video, What Ruined Rugrats. He talks a lot about it. Like, yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. Like, I never knew about that. And, you know, obviously there's, you know, stuff online you can read about it as well. But, and then, what else was there? But the show, you know, I went into it with mixed expectations, and it's good. Like, I like it, to be honest. You know, this is someone who grew up watching the original. The only complaint I have is that the hair looks kind of funny. It almost looks like cardboard or something. And then the animation of the eyes, like the pupils, looks off. Like, it's... How can I explain this? It's like let's say... Like, here's the eye. Let's say this right here is their eye. Here's the pupil. It'll be right here. Then all of a sudden it's there. Like, it doesn't move to that. It just glitches over. It's really weird. But the show is good. Like, you know, I mean, what's interesting is that they actually kind of like updated it, so to speak. Like the parents are millennials and the grandfather is a boomer. Like Stu is a gamer, and then the grandfather is like a hippie guru type of thing, which I'm okay with that. I will miss his World War II stories, though. And then, what was I going to say? But yeah, that's like, you know, some of the characters are missing, like, for example, and all the parents are, like, voiced by different actors and stuff. Like, it's, you know, their voices are different, but the babies still sound the same. Like, the only one who's a little bit different is Chucky, because the original voice actress, Christine Cavanaugh, unfortunately passed away several years ago, but he's now voiced by Nancy Cartwright, which I think is a good choice. You know, she's mostly well known for voicing Bart Simpson, but yeah, the show is good. Like I think it's, you know, I've got pretty good chuckles out of it. And, you know, I think it's funny, and one scene that actually really made me laugh pretty funny, that I thought was hilarious, was there's an episode where Angelica gets like this look-alike electronic toy or something, like a doll, and the grandfather says like technology creeps me out. Whatever happened to the days of kids playing with a sock? And Drew was like, oh, and that's not creepy? I just thought that was hilarious. But another thing that slipped my mind, and then I'll end this, is there's also the 2003 Ninja Turtle series on there, because you know Nickelodeon owns the rights to Ninja Turtles. Unfortunately, they don't have the 87 one, because that's like a licensing nightmare, but they do have the 2003 series, and then also Rise of the TMNT series, which came out a few years ago. That one, again, I talked about this in another video. I gave it a chance. Animation is very good, but the art style, the characters' personalities, and the stories are just, even kids didn't like it, from what I understand. Like, I talked about that more in my video where I talked about where people brush off criticism. I talked a lot more about Rise. But yeah, that's on there if you want to give it a shot. I personally didn't like it, and I think a lot of people didn't, you know, because the show flopped. And also, unfortunately, the 2012 series isn't on there, which maybe it will be eventually, because personally I think that one is the best in terms of quality. Like, the 87 one will always be my favorite, but the 2012 one was very good, like, in terms of quality. So, and overall, the streaming service, Paramount Plus, is only $5 a month, which might change over time. It might increase or whatever, but whatever. That's just my thoughts on Paramount Plus. You know, if you're interested in it and you want to check it out, you know, that's just some of my opinions on it. So until next time, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.